Welcome to devMode.fm, a podcast dedicated to the tools, techniques, and technologies used in modern web development. I'm Andrew Welch from NY Studio 107, and joining me... Gotta get Ryan in here.
Yeah. Hello?
Oh no. Oh no, Ryan. What have I done? Okay.
I'm here. I see myself.
Yeah, but that's supposed to be the split view.
Oh. Well,
What did I do? How do I get it back to split view, Ryan?
that's a good question.
Oh my god. All right, so there's split. I just clicked on this. That's not it. That's not it. Oh, wait a minute. I know what you gotta do. You gotta go like this, and then you gotta go like this.
There we are.
Oh my goodness.
You want to do the intro again?
Sure, why not? Welcome to devMode.fm, a podcast dedicated to the tools, techniques, and technologies used in modern web development. And joining me is my esteemed colleague, Ryan Irelan. How you doing, Ryan?
Hey, how are you?
I'm doing excellent. So we figured we should go live now because apparently we've got Ben Croker who's at the gate. He's flying. He's on, I don't know if you know, he's on some fancy island somewhere. He decided that if he's going to ride out the pandemic, he might as well do it in style on an island. So he's off the coast of Spain or something like that. And I guess he's flying back. He's about to board an aircraft.
Yeah. It's an island he owns, right? He bought it. Is that right? I can't remember.
Apparently the Blitz plugin is just doing incredibly well. And
okay.
Yeah. So Ryan used the proceeds and the profits to buy an island. I mean, why not? You know?
It's what I would do.
Yeah. Well, Ryan, I want to talk. I got a huge list of things. It's so funny. We sit down to do these, and I'm just like, I don't know if I have anything to talk about. And then I start
we talk all the time.
Yeah. Well, then I start adding these bullet points, and I'm just like, wow, I really should like cut down on these. Like, I got a lot of stuff here. But so one of the things that I did recently, and my kids, Tyler really wanted to do this. So we got these little AirTags things. So the AirTags.
You got the AirTags
from Apple.
Okay, so what's your use case for those?
Yeah, that took a lot of justification. And originally I was buying more of these than I ended up buying.
Right.
And so my wife and I, well, she kind of shot down some of my, and she's right, by the way, too. Like I had some really dumb ideas for things that I might use them for. But we ended up getting it so that we bought a 4-pack of them, and we got 2 for the dog, so 1 for each dog. So, and it actually is useful because we live on 17 acres here, and a lot of times we just open the door and let them out. And when it's like 3:30 in the morning, the most annoying thing is like trying to encourage the dog to come back inside. So it'd be nice to be able to like hunt them down and bring them back in. And the other thing I got them for was really for luggage. So that, you know, when we're traveling somewhere, we can just throw it on there, and it's like a bright red tag too. So we can throw it on there to track the luggage. And in the meantime, when we're not traveling, which is most of the time, those tags are going to be on our kids' backpacks, you know, so we can track it that way. And
I thought you weren't supposed to use them to track people.
Why not?
Like that. I don't remember what the reason was.
Weren't you just telling me that kids aren't people, they're property? I thought you were telling me that.
No, that was not me. Thank you very much. I'm not going on the public record with that.
Okay.
Don't use AirTags for kids. That's what I'm going to Google. Apple says don't use AirTags to track your kids.
Why?
I
mean, I'm not going to implant it in them. This isn't like some conspiracy theory.
We don't use. I mean, I don't have any AirTags just because. I'm kind of tired of. Just tired of some Apple stuff. But so I decided not to opt in until I had a real use case for them.
You decided you're tracked enough, and you don't need to be tracked anymore.
But
right?
what we do is, if my daughter, so she's 10 and a half. If she is going like out on her bike by herself with some friends, like she'll throw like iPhone in like a fanny pack or in a backpack or something like that, and we can track that way.
Nice.
I am going to switch her to just an Apple Watch, like not one I'm buying for her, but a leftover one. And that'll work. But I'm trying to look at this thing and see why they, because that way you can also contact them, right? I know that your kids probably, I mean, your kids
You're
go
not
wander on the
making, you're
property
not
and
giving
stuff.
me any kind of argument as to why not to do it. Why
Yeah,
can't
I'm
I do
looking.
it?
I don't have one personally, but I thought Apple said don't do it.
Anyway,
The company designed the AirTag to track items, not people or pets. If parents would like to safely track their young children, the person at Apple suggested an Apple Watch with family setup might be a better choice.
sure. So the more expensive thing. So literally, I'm using this thing for the two things that they say not to use it for: pets and.
Well, no,
kids.
they actually said you can do it for a pet. They just have to make sure that their moving pet gets into range of a device in the Find My network, so its location can be tracked.
Oh, right. So
here we go. It says Apple doesn't specifically make clear whether the reason for its stance, this is an iMore article, is one of technical limitations or simply not wanting to be sued when an AirTag doesn't do its job one day.
Probably the latter.
I assume they're like, it's not really made for this. So, but you said you were going to put it on luggage when you travel again. Are you just going to slide it into like the inside of a pocket, or are you going to actually have it like as a luggage tag?
I thought about that. And so originally my idea was a luggage tag. And then I'm like, well, wait a minute. Won't someone steal it? And then I'm just like,
Steal it, yeah.
But isn't it pointless for them to steal it? Like, what can they do with it?
I don't know. Is it reassignable to like another iCloud account or not?
I don't think so. I don't think you can just like take one and then reassign it. I don't think it works like that. Otherwise, it would be
probably
super
like a phone,
pointless.
right? Where it has like a IMEI, whatever the device ID is that never changes.
Yeah. So then I was just like, well, okay, well then I'll just get a bright colored strap, and I'll put it in that on the outside of it, so that'll let us visually identify the luggage better too. Anyway, I don't know. I think it is.
And then you realize that you're in more on straps than you are on the actual AirTags.
Yeah, the whole thing is honestly quite questionable in terms of whether it was a reasonable purchase. Like I'm with that. I understand that. And one of the main reasons why I do this all the time. It's just so bad. But the only reason I ended up getting them is I had looked at getting them before. Oh my God. So Nevin says that we are life-size on his living room TV. That's frightening.
I'm very sorry. I hope you don't have family around, Nevin.
Yeah, take your glasses off. It'll look much better.
Are you talking about me? I know I do look better without my glasses.
No, you look smarter with them on.
Oh, do I? Okay.
Yeah, you look very, very intelligent. Yeah.
My IQ just went from 0 to 1.
I said you looked intelligent. I didn't say that you actually were, just to be clear. But so anyway, what I did was I had looked at buying these AirTags when they came out, and then I'm just like, you know what? That's really I'm not really going to use that. Maybe I just won't get them. And then I had occasion to buy something from Apple. So I wanted to get the new remote, right? And it's one of those things where you're just like, oh, well, you know,
$99.
If I'm already buying this, you know, and this one I added it to my cart already and it remembered it for like the next 10 years, you know? So that's it. I ended up doing it. But in general, I don't know about you, I was a little bit disappointed in WWDC because I was hoping that this was a case where I could give Apple some of my cash for something that was really useful. I really was hoping for an M1X or an M2 machine that I could plunk my money down. And then we don't have Patrick, you know, going off on me all the time about how fast and how silent his fan is on his M1 and all that kind of stuff. I wanted
a small laptop though, right? You want a 16-inch.
Yeah. Well, I want the screen size because for development, like for code, it just is really useful for me to do that. I have worked on a MacBook Air over the years. I've tried many, many times to like adapt myself to it. It doesn't work for me.
Yeah, I spent, when I first went out on my own in 2014, I want to say I spent like a year or two on an 11-inch MacBook Air as my main machine. And it was awesome for a lot of things. Like, it's such a sweet size laptop. But now, like with code, like if you have like PHP Storm open or any like IDE like that, it just doesn't work. Like you're having to constantly open and close panes and stuff. Like you just really need a lot of space. So I'm also waiting on the 16-inch to be announced. So fortunately for me, or I guess, like I'm just like, oh, whew, like now I'm spared having to spend the money for another. Well, they're probably going to come out with what in the fall. So
I would imagine. I mean, these things are going to come at some point, But yep. were you disappointed? I was disappointed. I was really kind of hoping that they would be coming out.
Yeah, for the laptop, I thought some of the software stuff they announced was really cool, and I wish I had done some prep and brought up some notes here. But the
I wish you'd done some prep too, Ryan.
So I actually started thinking about dang it, hang on. Oh, so all of like the software and iCloud features they added in, like the thing where like the seamless keyboard and mouse control between a laptop and or an Apple like Mac and a iPad was super cool. So it seems like they're really working on like they're still trying to fully integrate all of their tools and systems. They definitely made a play. Like they did some tweaks to Apple Notes, trying to make it a little bit more Notion-like. I think they're definitely seeing how people are using like note-taking tools now are a little bit different than they had originally intended. I think they're just adding like just enough features to make that worthwhile for a lot of people.
And RJ is saying that he used the 11-inch MacBook Air for a long time, and I mean, I get it. Like I said, I tried using it for a long time, even back when I was more of a president than a programmer, shall we say? Like I was spending more time in email than I was in code editors, shall we say?
Right.
And it just didn't do it for me. I don't know. I just didn't do it. And I also found that I wasn't spending a ton of time using a laptop in these like crazy on the go situations. I always had the laptop with me somewhere. You know what I mean? Where it wasn't that big of a deal for it to be a little bit bigger and a little bit heavier. And this is funny. So I'm going to roast Patrick a little bit, which is kind of
unfair, isn't it?
Yeah. It's unfair because he's not here, but I'm going to do it anyway. But so he's going on and on and on about his M1 Air, and he does everything on it. And the best thing about it is that he has one machine. He's living the one machine life. He doesn't have to worry about syncing between anything, nothing like that. And then he messages me the other day, and he's just like, "Oh, the new M1 iPad is fantastic. I use it as a second machine." And I'm like, "Oh, that's really cool. That's awesome." And then I'm just like, "Wait a minute. Whoa, hold up. Wait a minute. Aren't you like the one machine, one life guru? And that's like the big thing is you don't have to sync anything and whatever." Anyway, I was disappointed, but it looks like I'm going to save my money for a little longer. Go ahead.
The iCloud. I mean, yeah, on the laptop for sure. I did enjoy a lot of the iCloud stuff that they offered. They're doing a lot of stuff that like Chrome and Google have already done for a long time. A lot of the syncing behind the scenes of browser state and tabs and but it's nice. So the nice thing is that like the advantage of being like fully in the Apple ecosystem is that if you do use all their tools, it all really just works really nicely. Like a lot of people use like third-party like podcast apps for listening to podcasts, which I don't understand because Apple has hands down the best experience in both the UI and the syncing.
Well, it's better now. They recently redid the podcast.
Yeah, no,
it is
like
nicer.
I will listen to a podcast in my car, come in. If there's something I want to continue listening to, I just pull up the app on my iMac in my office here and just hit play, and it just continues from where I left off. Like it's near perfect. And then also like we're full in at home on the HomePod. We have 5 HomePods at home, and so like
what?
Just yeah.
That's one thing I have never bought. I have never bought a HomePod.
Oh, the HomePods. It's easily one of my all-time favorite Apple devices. And I know that the
why'd they discontinue it then?
They discontinued the big one, not the minis. And so one thing they announced at WWDC
For someone who doesn't
that,
like being tracked, Ryan, I'm starting to see some holes in the. You got a listening outpost everywhere in your house, right?
yeah, but it's all done on the chip, though, right? They don't, and they're doubling down on that with all their new Siri stuff, where they're not even sending. I think some of the new stuff is not even going to send audio up into the cloud. It's all going to be something where they're going to do something just all on the chip in terms of maybe they're going to do the audio to text conversion all on the chip. I can't remember but they're really doubling down on the security of it.
You know the real advantage of. Go ahead.
And I know that the Alexa stuff is more sophisticated for sure. Like the things that you can ask it to do is way better. But the HomePod is fully integrated into our lives. We use it for the weather in the morning, when school was in, like before school, the weather for the next day when we're planning like an outfit or something. We use it for turning lights on.
Hold on. I'm not letting that go. You plan your outfits? I don't believe you.
For my daughter, for
Okay. I was gonna say, I've seen what you show up on these live streams. I don't believe you plan no outfits. Okay.
I'm you open my drawer. It's basically like a series of craft class t-shirts.
Yeah.
So, and then also for turning lights on and off, for setting timers, like we're fully.
Oh well, thank God you're spared the indignity of hitting a light switch. I mean, jeez.
Yeah, or if we're home, let's say my wife is out and my daughter's like, I want to call mom and ask her something. You just ask. You can just say, "Hey Siri," anywhere, because the house has so many of them, and it'll just call up. It basically will use my phone, but it'll just call and then put her. And we use it for music all the time.
All right, real talk.
We'll be sitting at dinner and there'll be a question like, "What's such and such? What's the capital of such and such?" And then we'll just say, "Hey Siri, what's the capital of Mongolia?"
All right, real talk, Ryan. Real talk.
Okay. Yeah.
The reason why you like Siri so much is you're just happy to have someone at home that listens to you. Is that right? Is that true?
The truth.
Yeah. Okay. All right. I get it.
In our daughter's at sleepaway camp this week, and every morning we write an email to her that they then print out and give her as like camper mail. And one of the things I wrote today is that things are normal here. The cat still wakes us up too early, and Siri still listens to everything that we ask her to do.
Yeah. See, I knew that had to be part. I'll tell you.
So that's it. So all of the integration stuff, like I love, and that's the thing that people actually really don't like about Apple is that if you're not in fully, then it feels kind of broken and disjointed. But I love it. I think it's great. I can't wait. Oh, so real quick and we'll move on to something else. They announced the next Apple TV is going to allow you to pair one or more HomePod minis to it, so you can actually have them as your speakers for your TV. Which is, I have a HomePod mini in our TV room. It's just a single one that is basically just for, we play music around the house or something like that. But I have always been, and I'll take all the criticism for this. I have always been anti-Sonos. Are you a Sonos household, Andrew?
Maybe.
I have never liked Sonos from the early days. Like I first started using it in when I worked at Happy Cog. We had Sonos systems in the office here in Austin and then one in Philadelphia. I just never liked the app. Like the software was just always like felt kind of weird to me. So I know a lot of people like it. I don't like it. It seems like it doesn't really do enough. I guess there are a lot of them are Alexa enabled now. Maybe I can't remember.
Yeah, we don't use that, but they are Alexa enabled now. Yeah. We did so we've got like a home theater downstairs, like a projector kind of thing, and that just has like just like a good sound system installed, like a 5.2 sound system in there. Mm-hmm. And then last year we revamped some of the upstairs TV and the one in the barn over here. And I got rid of, I had a whole rack for each one of them. You know what I mean? Right. I had a receiver and I had this and I had that and I had all this and I got rid of it all, Ryan. Yep. It's all gone. Yep.
Doesn't
The
make sense
only
anymore.
thing that I have hooked up to both of the TVs now is an Apple TV, and I'm using the Sonos stuff. So I've got a sound bar and some rear speakers for it, and it's good. I mean, I like it. I don't use the app at all, so I don't know or care anything about that.
Yeah.
I don't use Alexa for anything. But anyway, getting back to WWDC, one of my favorite things about watching it was the fact that I was not an Apple developer anymore, and like some of the improvements that they made to all of the various application kits and to the development tools, they all looked awesome, right? Mm-hmm. But what I mean is, as someone who was there originally developing on Motorola 68K processors, right? I'm going to date myself, right? I was there for that transition from there to the PowerPC, right? So we learned a whole new instruction set, rewrote a whole bunch of code just for that. Then I was also there for the PowerPC to Intel transition. Again, rewrote a whole bunch of code, had to transition stuff, all that kind of fun stuff. And our stuff was the type that would break on these transitions. It was not in the class of apps that would easily then be recompiled and ported over. There's a lot of low-level stuff in there. And just watching this, I was just like I'm happy for the M1 and everything, but I'm just so glad that I'm not having to report the software again to another processor. I'm thrilled that is not something that I'm doing anymore. And that's what I took out of it more than anything else. In addition to being disappointed that I couldn't spend any money on
a laptop. Stuff. Have you gotten into, have you played with Swift at all?
Yep.
Okay. Because I know they made some improvements to that, and
it's better than Objective-C, and it's a nice enough language. And well, Objective-C was, they're
I took a week-long iOS development class in person, and a long time, several years ago. And this was before Swift, and Objective-C was, it just seemed like a lot of work.
Well, it was like a lot of languages. C++ was this way originally too. It was originally a preprocessor in front of just GCC, and now LLVM or whatever. So I don't know. Maybe they were constrained to some extent what they were doing. I don't know. All the brackets everywhere. I just kind of started to, and that's where I started to kind of tune out. To be honest with you, from that whole ecosystem. Swift is a whole lot better for sure, but there are some things that are very, very insular about being in an ecosystem like an Apple or an iOS or a Mac developer ecosystem. And ironically, what you encounter with web development, because it will encompass front end, back end, DevOps, this huge spectrum of stuff, is actually more. There's more going on. There's a whole lot more to know and learn than there is if you're going to be an Apple developer, for instance. And it's a different type of development too.
Yeah.
But it's a much smaller pool of stuff, and it's curated by Apple, and it's really well documented, and
it moves much more slowly.
Yeah.
There's you sent me a link for a new build tool today.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
It's how much new stuff. So Andrew, so we're live streaming when we're recording this. We're live streaming on YouTube. Have you ever run into any YouTube copyright enforcement before?
Yes. So devMode.fm is banned in, I believe, North Korea and also in Denmark. Yeah.
In Denmark? What did you do to the Danish?
So
did you hate on IKEA or something?
No, the little the bomb track acoustic that plays at the beginning of devMode. I don't know. Apparently there's some ownership claimed of it, but only in Denmark and North Korea. I don't know. It doesn't even make sense to me. But I just looked at it and I'm just like, all right, whatever. I don't care.
So YouTube has they do a lot of copyright enforcement on music, and you can search on YouTube for people complaining about it. But a lot of it is AI driven. So on the other live stream that we do, Craft Request on Call, I wrote in GarageBand with this keyboard that's right behind me, a little intro song, little theme song. It's all in GarageBand. It's using Apple stock sounds and some loops. And it's something that I constructed and created myself. So I put it up there at the beginning, and immediately, as soon as we were done live streaming, there was a copyright notice sent to me. And I was like, what? And then I put up the theme song just as its own video. And immediately, as soon as it posted, there was a copyright notice. So there's like AI that I assume that runs every time somebody posts something. But the thing is, they claimed it to be this song like called Camouflage Girl or something like that. And I try to, like, there's a few songs. I try to find like all the songs on Apple Music that I have access to that called that. And none of them sound like it, but it claims to be like the melody is the same. And the melody, I think on one of them was like just like this synthesizer thing. And are you holding up you white balancing?
I'm seeing if the envelope is as pink as my head. Anyway, continue. I'm listening.
The melody on that song that they're claiming is just like the synthesizer. And that's, I have synth in my song, but they're nothing alike. And so I disputed it. Because basically, and I looked up, like, you have full rights from Apple to use those loops and sounds both personally and commercially. Like, there's no restrictions on it. They basically pass along full like royalty-free rights to that. And I told them when I disputed, I was like, I can send you my GarageBand file. Like, I created this thing. And I do know that you can create a song even accidentally that is too close to an existing song, and then. Yeah, that is on you to either share the revenue, and that's typically what happened. It happened with the Flaming Lips and Cat Stevens, I think, was one of the more famous ones. So that happens all the time, but this wasn't even close. I thought maybe it was something like that, where it just happened to be, because there's only so many notes in Western music, and there's only so many combinations of chords. Like it's not.
I'm disappointed that a content creator like you, Ryan, would plagiarize. I mean, I find it disappointing. I really do.
So what happens here, what the frustrating part for me is that it's automatic, like BMI as an example. It's like they're a.
Are you attacking me?
No.
Oh, you're talking about BMI?
No, it's a music rights organization.
I know.
Anyway, they basically have like all the rights, and the content creators have basically zero rights, because they can flag your stuff incorrectly.
Yep.
And the default action is, we flagged it. Basically, if you monetize this video, we're getting either all or a portion of the proceeds from that.
Yeah, they just take your money.
You have to dispute it.
Yeah.
And if you dispute it, sometimes if you dispute and lose enough times, they'll take your channel down, or they'll give you copyright strikes and then take your channel down because you disputed it. So it's really crazy, because it's AI driven, a lot of it, and it's wrong. It's completely wrong. So anyway, that's my rant.
I think what could go wrong, Ryan? The future of AI driven everything, like AI just driving our cars. What could go wrong? It seems like it's solid,
Yeah. But so I haven't heard back. They have like 30 days to respond. I'm sure they'll claim whatever, and I'll just carry on with my life and give them the 4.5 cents that I earned from the song.
So I want to switch gears for a second, if I could.
Yeah.
And just talk about, what I've been working on lately, and I'd be interested in hearing stuff that you've been working on lately too.
Sure.
So I sent you a message the other day saying, I did it. And you're like, what? What'd you do? I'm like, I successfully didn't do what I was supposed to do today. Like, I didn't do it at all. So one of the things that I've been working on lately, I've actually been spending a decent bit of time writing JavaScript code for some plugins for Rollup and Vite, right? Mm-hmm. So as we talked about on the craft I can't say it. On the Craft Quest live stream, where I wrote the plugin for Rollup that did critical CSS. Then another thing that I wanted was to generate the favicons as part of that build process. And I found a plugin that did it, but it really assumed it was working in a front-end JavaScript, not with a server-side rendered setup. And then also parts of it were broken, or they didn't work as intended. But I thankfully was familiar enough with favicons, because I'm getting married to all these weird, obscure projects. I did pull requests for the Webpack version of the favicons Webpack plugin a while back, so I was already familiar with it. And I'm like, no, dude, I know how to fix this. So I did the pull request for that. unfortunately, he hasn't gotten back to me on anything, so I don't know. I don't know what length of time that I should wait before I just say screw it and I fork it and I name it something else. Because it's MIT licensed. I could do that.
Right.
I don't want to just pull.
And you're having to maintain that, right? Like.
Yeah, but I don't care. Like if it's something I'm going to use, like I'm fine with at least keeping it working for me because I need it. But also there isn't a huge obligation, If you create one of these packages, and if for some reason you don't feel like maintaining it anymore, I mean, just write in it. I don't feel like maintaining this anymore. And if someone wants it, they can come take it. You know what I mean? You're not married to these things. But I've been working on that. And then in relation to that, I've actually also been working on some small plugin updates. So I fixed a number of bugs in, believe it or not, Ryan, this is going to be shocking to you, but I write software with bugs in it. Don't tell anybody. Make sure we don't get that out there. But
I know I
it's a
use
thing.
the YouTube Live Embed plugin, so we're all familiar.
Yeah, that was a great plugin until someone else took it over, and then it just went to shit. It was weird.
It's still in your account. It hasn't been transferred to me. So.
Oh, well, I would be happy to transfer that any time that you like, sir. But so I fixed some bugs in Image Optimize and SEO-matic, and the other thing that I'm doing is as I update these plugins, I'm also updating the documentation.
Okay.
So not just to update the text of it, but also I'm updating the whole thing to use VitePress instead of ViewPress. So VitePress is, this kind of lighter weight. It's basically the same thing, right?
Is this related to Vite?
Yes. I should call it VitePress. Damn it. VitePress, yes.
Okay. So what's
Rhymes with VitePress.
Okay.
Go ahead.
No, what's the advantage of switching?
Well, I started using it because I wrote the Vite plugin, and I'm like, well, this is dumb. Like, I should be using VitePress if on my Vite plugin. Like, it only makes sense,
Right.
Use one with the other. And then I found I actually really liked the way that it works. It's very lightweight, and that's all I need. I don't need anything super crazy with this. And I just liked the way it worked. I liked the way it was quick and all that kind of stuff. So I started converting over using that. And I also found this thing called TextLint, which is really neat. So what it is
okay. So is it like a grammar checker? Or?
Yeah, it's like ESLint, if you've heard of that.
Yeah.
But for writing, and it works on Markdown files as well as text files, right? And the cool thing about it is it works very similar to ESLint, where you can just pick what rules you want. You can just add in whatever rules you want to keep, whatever writing style you like, right? And you can also set whether they are, whether certain rules are considered errors or they're considered warnings.
Mm-hmm.
You can set the priority level for these things. And the nice thing about that now is when I do a build of the documentation, it runs it through this thing and it automatically corrects a number of things, right? So one of the things that I just have as an old habit is I use E.G:::, E.G::, right? You know what that stands for in Latin?
Necessary.
What is it?
What's the Latin? I don't remember what the Latin is for it.
Exemplia gratia or something like that. It's like a free example is kind of what it means.
Yeah.
But it will automatically go in and change that to, for example. So anywhere that I use
it won't even use the EG. I was going to say you actually don't need a colon after the EG.
Yeah.
But I know that from writing technical books that my editor used to always tell me to not use EG. You actually have to write out, for example.
Yeah. So that's one example of a rule. So for example, that's one example. See? Little inception here going on.
Nice.
And other things are like smart quotes. So I've got a number of rules that it just automatically applies to the text.
So where is the, like, what engine or where is it pulling like the rules from or the like, what is it referencing to know when it's parsing through the text to know what's what?
Well, they're all, so there's a core package and then there are plugins for it that implement these various rules. So you pick what rules you want. I'm not sure what you're asking. So basically there's a huge repo of TextLint rules. And you can just say, I want this, I want that, I don't want this, I don't want that.
Okay.
And you can set the level for them and all that kind of stuff. and it also will spit out a bunch of warnings. So stuff that is arguable, like it'll say like, well, this sentence sounds a little passive aggressive, or or don't use the word just, or it's as easy as, or things like that.
Oh, okay. I'm looking at the project on GitHub. So it's a collection of rules rather than like an. I'm always thinking of like the Grammarly engine, where it actually. Okay.
Yeah. So it's a collection of, and what I did is, I actually got turned on to this by somebody that he worked on the project, and he is also a Vue contributor. And this is the system that the Vue documentation people use. And they actually have it set up that it will, everything comes in via PR, which is the only way to manage, large things like that. And it will actually reject pull requests to the documentation if they fail the writing tests that they have up there, which is super cool if you think about it.
Super cool.
Yeah.
So so it looks like the spell checker rule, like it just leverages like the native spell checker, like NS spell checker. And then it had like, this is kind of cool, like TextLint rule stop words.
Yep.
It finds filler words, buzzwords, and cliches, which is great for when you're writing to pull those out. Once I started using, so I use Grammarly a lot. Once I started using that, I realized how bad my writing had gotten over the years, like just relying on the same things over and over again.
Yep.
Or not realizing that you're not being clear, stuff like that. So
and that's funny that you mentioned Grammarly. So I'm gonna continue with the docs, but I want to take a quick tangent. So I had Ben Croker preview one of my articles, and he gave me a couple of comments on it, and then he said, and I found a couple of typos, but I'm sure Grammarly will pick those up for you. And I'm just like, dude, I don't use Grammarly. I don't use anything. Like, can you tell me what the typos are? And then, characteristic Ben, he disappeared. He probably I imagine him, whenever he messages me and then disappears, I imagine that he's on a mountaintop somewhere in Austria, and he just plunges over the side on his hand glider. You know what I mean? And he's gone. So that cost me money because I signed up for this Grammarly thing, and you can sign up for the free tier, but then they do this really smart thing where they put a little badge on it and they say, we found 5 other ways you could improve this thing. And I'm like, what are they? Like, tell me what those 5 are. Like, damn it. And then I ended up buying the I don't think it's called the Pro. It's the first pay tier. It's nothing too crazy.
Yeah, that's what I have.
I bought that, and then Ben comes back to me. I'm like, Ben, you cost me like $140 a year, or whatever it ends up being. And he's just like, oh, I just used the free one. I'm like, okay, great. That's wonderful.
So the paid one is actually where, for me, the real value is, because it finds like the stuff that really makes my writing clear. And Grammarly can be a little controversial if you're using it, because they are processing your text and stuff. But like, I'm writing like technical articles and stuff like that. It's not a big deal, but I've gotten a lot of value out of it for sure. So and having worked with a professional development editor and copy editor, like, this is a super affordable compared to that. So those people are expensive and valuable.
Well, here's what I wonder though, Ryan. So, and I'm using, this as part of the documentation, and because it's technical writing, like, I'm totally cool with it auto-correcting a lot of this stuff. And the warnings, when I have time, I will go back and maybe look at rewriting some of those, maybe not, whatever. If I was doing creative writing, I don't know how much I would like it, because not necessarily the TextLint, but rather something like Grammarly, because, I mean, doesn't it inevitably make everyone sound like they're using Grammarly? You know what I mean? Doesn't it kind of neuter what might be interesting or unique about a voice when they're writing? Like, I can't imagine if you ran Ulysses, for instance, through Grammarly, like, it would probably go crazy,
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think that's one of the criticisms of Grammarly and tools like that. It does homogenize, like, people's, like, how people sound, like, and takes away the voice. You wouldn't have, like, think about the breakthrough that Hemingway made in fiction writing.
Getting drunk in bars in Cuba? What are you talking about?
Well, I mean, just like his whole style, right, was like, so it was completely new.
Yeah.
and maybe that's harder now, but I don't think that's fiction writers are probably using Grammarly. It's definitely more for business writing. But in Grammarly, you can set like what your target audience is or what your target style is,
Yeah.
and then it will appropriately apply filters and rules to that. But for sure, I think that you don't want to have your voice like there's the whole conflict between Strunk and White, which is like the classic like writing manual, and there's another one called I think Spunk and Bite, which is like a
I'm leaving that alone, Ryan.
like break the rules, like it's an actual book. I'm like a
Okay.
break. I have both. I have it. It's not here in my office, but it's like a break the rules, like push the envelope with your writing, like be creative, have your own voice, not like don't sound like everyone else.
Yeah, because otherwise it's like the gray goo. Like, okay, you could eat like this gray goo that pours from a spigot, and it could have all the nutritional content that you need, but is that what you want?
Like documentation though, like you want that to be clear and accessible to as many people as possible, not like, there was this guy back in the Ruby world called Y, like WHY was his name. And he always had like great like tutorials on Ruby, and they were very like Y-esque. Like they had like his whole like personality, and they're kind of, talking about bacon and stuff. And it was fine, but like you wouldn't want to write a technical book in that manner, although he might have. Anyway.
Yeah. So
yeah, I forgot that you were on Grammarly. So yeah, Grammarly world.
So that's part of the documentation stuff that I've been doing. And then also it has a nice integration with Algolia. So that all mixes in. Yeah, and then what I did the other day, that is not what I was supposed to be doing, or at least not what I had kind of mentally scheduled for myself to be doing that day, was I had just been using VitePress with all the defaults. Like literally just grab it, run it, spit it out, and then just use whatever is there. So I'd done zero customization to it. And it looked fine. Like it looked nice. There's nothing wrong with it. But I was going to write an article on it to kind of finish up this trifecta of plugin development articles that I wrote in terms of I wrote one on I wrote one on a local dev environment and showed people how they could spin up their own Dockerized local dev environment. And then I wrote one on using Vite as a build chain for plugin development. And then I wanted to write this one on documentation. And I'm like, as long as I'm writing this on documentation, and this gets back to what we have talked about many times in terms of in order to teach something, you have to know it really well. I figured if I was going to write this article, I should probably look into what it would take to actually customize the look of it, even though I didn't really need it. Like I didn't really care that much. So I looked into it, and one of the reasons I didn't look into it sooner is also just like VitePress is a work in progress. So the documentation is also very much a work in progress. So they basically say any customization should be done in your theme. And then that's it. There's like no documentation on how to do a theme. But I ended up, it's one of those things like we've talked about. It wasn't as hard as I thought it might be. So I ended up doing a custom theme, which all it does actually is it takes the default theme and it injects that, and then it overrides and adds a couple of small things to it. So I changed the primary brand color. So it's got like the NY Studio Aqua color is used as the focus outline, and it's used as the link text and all that kind of stuff. And then I also wrote a little view component that puts the logo in the lower right corner. And both of these just to demonstrate like the type of things that you can do, but they're also niceties for the documentation. So that's another thing that I've been doing. And so as I've been updating these plugins and adding bug fixes to them, I've also then been moving them over from ViewPress to VitePress and pushing those out. So I think I'm up to like, 5 or 6 of the plugins are now using that. And then I submit them to Algolia doc search, and I wait for them to get back to me for an API key so that they're searchable up there. Yeah. But that's another thing that I've been working on. How about yourself? What have you been up to, sir?
What have I been doing, Andrew? I've been extending for Craft Quest. I wrote the beginnings of a plugin to extend it to allow myself to offer discounts, like coupons that are created in Stripe for subscriptions.
Hold on.
So-
Hold up.
Yep.
Wait a minute.
Yep.
Wait a minute.
Sure.
You're telling me that Commerce is at version 3.2 or whatever it is, and it does not offer coupons for subscriptions? This is seriously like, does it offer coupons for regular purchases?
Yeah. For the
Okay.
cart-based purchases, yeah, it's always had like.
But no
coupons and
subscription
sales.
stuff. No coupons for
not for-
subscription stuff at all. What about vouchers?
No. Josh Crawford from Verb has a voucher plugin that does that for standard cart-based purchases, but I don't believe it's. I think you actually looked recently. I don't.
So
think
how is anyone supposed to run a subscription business, Ryan, if there are no coupons and no vouchers? Serious question. Serious question.
Well, I mean, it's been. There's an issue for it, and it's been in GitHub for Commerce. It's just it hasn't been something that they've tackled. I don't know, because it's a common. I don't know that many people actually use Commerce for subscriptions. I mean, there's some, because there's people that are asking for this and saying, hey,
is it a chicken and an egg though? Is it because they don't use it for it because it doesn't have this stuff?
It could be. I mean, like offering a discount for a subscription, like first month. I mean, you can do. They have trials, so you can definitely use trials in Commerce subscriptions already. That's been there probably from the beginning. But let's say second month free. You can't do that currently. But you can do it in Stripe. Like you can say, I mean, actually you can, because you don't require a coupon. But you have to. So what I had to do was just write the ability to pass a coupon along to when a subscription request is sent to create a subscription into Stripe, and then it just looks to see that coupon already exists in the Stripe system, because Stripe does all of the logic for the coupon, when to apply it, how long to apply it for, whether it's product based or customer based. And I just had to just write the little bit to kind of tie those together, and then I just ended up. This turned into like a whole thing. But
it's amazing to me. I mean, back in 2013, Carthrottle. So I've been involved in some subscription-based services.
Old school here.
And Cartthrob had something for discount coupons for subscriptions in 2013. Now, granted, it didn't work. Like I had to write a plugin to fix it. But then we switched to devDemon subscriptions, which is a plugin from what's his face. God, I honestly am forgetting his name, but the guy who ran Trump's stuff or whatever. What's his name?
Brad Parscale.
That's it. So that was his company, is my understanding. I didn't know any of this. I didn't know any of this at the time. But that actually worked. That actually worked pretty damn well. It had coupons and you could have discounts. And because one of the things we did is we would run a Black Friday sale, every year. And we would have discounted coupons for that. And we would have grandfathered stuff that we needed to adjust the price. And this seems like vital for running any kind of a subscription business.
The difference, I think, with that implementation, though, is that it was all handled on the Commerce software side.
Yeah.
And that's how the discounts and stuff work in Commerce, like your standard cart-based stuff, is that Commerce handles all of it. It's not synced up into Stripe. What I'm doing is I'm using the coupons that are in Stripe, because that's where, for me at least, is where all the value is in what Stripe has built. It's a world-class platform for payments, but it also allows you to do so much more. It's where my plans are run all through Stripe. So I can see some of the challenges from like the Craft Commerce team, because even though Commerce subscriptions only supports Stripe as a gateway right now.
Yep.
Like their whole stance is trying to be gateway agnostic. They're trying to, you write your own gateway plugin.
Right.
So you can use whatever, WorldPay or whatever. And if you want to use subscriptions on another gateway, you have to write that plugin. They only support out of the box Stripe.
All right. Real talk, Ryan. Real talk. Does it make sense? Go ahead. You had something you want to say first? Okay.
Yeah, I just wanted to say just real quick is that even if they came out with like Commerce side coupons and stuff like that
Mhm.
only were on the commerce side, it still wouldn't be as appealing to me, because for me, the power is all of what's happening in Stripe. All the logic you can build in Stripe is uh, where the power is. So there would still have to be, is kind of what I'm chasing, is that integration between the two. But anyway, go ahead with your question.
So my real talk question is, what value is commerce bringing you, and would it make more sense to just use a plugin or something else and just talk to Stripe directly? I mean, if Stripe is driving the subscriptions, you want everything in Stripe. What value is the commerce layer bringing to the table for you?
Well, for sure, when I first built CraftQuest in 2018, we actually just crossed 3 years, I think, this year, this week, is that I was able to, so the original idea was to build it in Laravel. Is it Spark? Is that their?
Yeah,
I can't remember.
you got it.
But anyway, that was the original idea. But then I decided to use Commerce and Craft. Commerce was 2 was still in beta with subscriptions, and because of the time to market, I could get live with the training and the subscription site much quicker, lower cost than I could have. Now, there's been some trade-offs as I go, but for sure, like, I was able to plug into Craft as a content management system with the commerce piece, and then it kind of manages, like, when an event happens in Stripe, that triggers a webhook that hits Craft, commerce, and then does something. Maybe it changes somebody's status in their account or something like that.
Yeah, like Mark Bushnelli is saying, or Bushnelli, I always pronounce it. I'm sorry. He told me how to pronounce it last time, and I still don't know it. Bushnelli, something like that. Says, like Snipcart. So we just did something very, or not even, I say we. I was involved, but I didn't really do any of the work. We converted that poker site over to use ChargeBee. Now, ChargeBee sounds like something that would be fantastic, actually, for a business like yours, not just for, that it would handle all this recurring stuff for you, but also that it provides all sorts of tools and insights into your churn and all that kind of stuff. Have you thought about moving it from, or is the benefit of using commerce that you're dog fooding the craft ecosystem so that, that helps your business too?
And that definitely came into play. Like, if I'm teaching that topic, it's kind of nice to be able to have, like, when I'm working on new features for the site, I'm thinking of, and like, ideas for things that I could teach.
Yep.
Or something might come up that feels like a teachable thing. And then it keeps me in that ecosystem. But I think, the majority of the people I think that are using commerce are using it for cart-based
Agreed.
stuff, not for subscriptions. Although, for the price of what you pay for commerce, and the speed at which I was able to go from nothing to market. Granted, like, that doesn't include creating the training material because I had so much already, but just like building out the site, it was fast, where like I couldn't have paid myself or anyone else, that small amount that it is for the license to get me, kind of up to speed. So with all the trade-offs, like, I just try to see it as it's an opportunity to work, with Stripe. But yeah, it is what it is. Nothing's perfect. I do wish they had built into discounts, and I assume that they, maybe other things are, higher up on their list than just the discounts for subscriptions.
Yeah.
So they'll probably do it now. Now that I've done all this work, they'll probably do it now.
Well, I mean, I personally think that what you should do is you should develop this out into a nice product, and you should sell it. I mean, that's what I would do. And then you also could do video series on, what it's like to build and market a plugin,
Right.
I mean, you could definitely do that. I don't know. I mean, every now and again, it makes sense to take stock and say, well, is this still the right tool for what I'm doing? And I guess because it keeps you in the ecosystem, that probably where you might be tipped in another direction, for if that wasn't the case, because it keeps you in the craft ecosystem, it probably makes sense for you to stay there for this, right?
Yeah. So let's say I was building another training site on Python or something like that. Then I would probably explore another way of doing it with
Right.
commerce. For commerce, not with a commerce plugin, but for the commerce piece.
Because that's what we did. We looked at it and we said, yeah, I mean, we could do this in commerce in theory, but what are we really gaining? Because when the site was first created, one of the reasons why Cartthrob was appealing was we had these designs where we might be selling merchandise and there might actually be a cart where stuff would be sold and that type of thing. And that just never actually ended up happening. So it didn't really matter that it could do that. If we knew what we knew now back then, we would never have chosen that, and we would have switched and done it a different way. And Chargebee, at least for their business, ends up being a way better way to manage this. It lets someone that specializes in doing the subscription thing do that, and they get new features, new reports, they get all this stuff all the time, and it works out really nice for them.
Yeah, and you asked about like reporting and stuff, and there's no. That's another thing that's kind of left out on Craft Commerce is good reporting for subscriptions.
Yeah.
So you have to rely on the reporting that you get in your Stripe dashboard, or I use a tool called Baremetrics.
Yep.
That gives you it's nicer than the Stripe stuff. The numbers are a little bit different. So the weird thing is with subscription products is that every tool kind of calculates the numbers slightly different, especially when it comes to what's called MRR, or monthly recurring revenue. Some people reduce the MRR when somebody cancels, but they haven't churned out yet, which means that they're still active, but they've canceled. And some people don't do it until they churn out. So you basically just choose one thing and say like, this number's kind of in the range, but the main thing is like, which direction am I going? That's where you have to.
All this jargon, Ryan. Well, Nevin says it reminds me of all the work we did on subscriptions and Chargeify, because Stripe didn't have the features. But if they did it now, they would just do it directly in Stripe. And that's what I'm.
Stripe is amazing, and it's like strangely like so straightforward when you like read like, oh, that's all I have to do. So like it's not. I don't think it's particularly difficult if you can code to and you have a simple like subscription implementation, like just to have it send your app webhooks when something happens. It's just what commerce does. Like I just get the full integration with, I'm already managing the training content there. So, and you get the user account stuff, like it just made sense at the time. And it's good. It's good for the topic of the site to be all in on the system as well.
Yeah, and that makes sense. I agree. And one thing I wanted to claw back to about, been spending a bunch of time doing JavaScript development stuff. It's amazing to me how different some of the norms, or what seem to be the norms for programming in different ecosystems, seem to be. I actually remember when I first started writing PHP, I had a bunch of people that were just like, what the hell are with your comments? You know what I mean? Like they were looking at the comments that I wrote and they're like, this is insane. So I was writing C-style comments. I'm like, what are you talking about? This is how we do it here in C-land,
Right.
And, unbeknownst to me, it's because they were using these automated tools that would generate the doc block comments and all that kind of stuff. That is something that is so different in the JavaScript ecosystem versus PHP. Is you open up even pretty big library code, and you don't see any kind of JS doc blocks on the functions. Like, you just don't see them. You don't see them documented with the documentation in there. And I think it's curious and it's interesting to me because, and I don't know how much of it is where I am in the PHP ecosystem. So I'm looking at stuff from, Craft, Yi, that kind of stuff where it's super documented in terms of the doc blocks. Maybe in other places it's not, but man, it is rare that you find a JavaScript project that has that kind of commenting in there on the doc blocks. So you just don't see it.
Is that like a community style thing where that you're I mean, there's like there's thinking, like a mentality that your code should be written clear enough to where you don't have to like over document it. Is
That's
that maybe
bullshit. I'm sorry, it is. Comments are not necessarily for, saying this line does this line does this. They're for pointing out the non-obvious things, and therefore giving you the overview that maybe a particular, reading the code doesn't give you. But then also having like a doc block is really useful because you can just hover over a function and you can see, what are the parameters that are being passed in and all that kind of good stuff. And I don't know, I'm not saying, it just was very strange to me. Like, now, granted, a huge part of the JavaScript ecosystem is getting into using TypeScript, which I'm all for. I love my charcuterie boards. Like, I'm totally on board with using TypeScript. And that sort of does force a little bit more documentation in there. But still, even libraries I've found that they have types, and the types are very well documented. You go anywhere into the code, and there's very, very little documentation that is in doc blocks or even inline in the code. And I don't know, man. I mean, I've been writing code for a really long time. When I first started out and thought I knew everything, I thought that way, where I was just like, oh, well, if you don't understand the code, you're not good enough, or you didn't write clear enough code or whatever. I look at it now and I'm like, that's just bullshit. Like, you have to write stuff from the point of view that you're not the only one who's going to be looking at it. Lots of different people are going to be looking at it. And anything non-obvious should absolutely be documented. And then also something that documents not just that there are parameters and not just what the types of those parameters are, but also how they're used is super useful in terms of getting people to use your stuff. I was just struck by the difference.
I'm new to the code base, and I'm just dropping in to debug something or understand something, and like, give me some help with the wayfinding here. Like, give me some, I need a map to understand what's going on here.
And it may have to do with the pace, like the pace of the JavaScript ecosystem is really quick. There's lots of churn. But still, I think at some point there's going to be code that in one form or another, you're living with it for years, and you should have some of that documented, I think, because if you're constantly just writing it and throwing it out, I don't know. I think it might be a little bit too hasty, but I found that interesting. It's not like I'm not saying one is better than the other, one is bad, the other is good. I'm just saying it's something that I noticed in doing, jumping from ecosystem to ecosystem. And I noticed it when I jumped over to use Go and to write stuff in Go. Like, there are definitely norms and conventions that are very different. One of the things
are they more pro like DocBox style commenting, or what's their approach?
Well, one of the biggest differences I noticed in Go is that testing is actually built into the language. It's not a third-party product or whatever. And I think that influences how people end up then writing their code in Go, because literally you just write test blah and it tests whatever that function is, and it's super integrated into the language. And it's interesting to me how, again, these languages can be like little tide pools. One little tide pool's over here, another little tide pool's over there, and they're both objectively just pools filled with water and, creatures living in it. But the way that they adapt and the things that they do can be quite different. I mean, it's all very similar as well, but just like the little differences, like, from Pulp Fiction, it's like, oh, Europe's the little differences, they eat mayo with their fries and stuff like that. You know what I mean? That kind of thing,
Wow, Pulp Fiction reference. You're dating yourself, Andrew.
Well, look, I date myself just by showing up on camera, Ryan. Come on. I think that about wraps it up for another episode of the devMode.fm podcast. If you enjoyed the show, make sure you subscribe, tell a friend, watch us live. Then you can ask some questions and interact with us on here, We'd really appreciate it. For the devMode.fm podcast, I'm Andrew Welch.
And I'm Ryan Irelan.
And thank you for coming on, Ryan. And we will talk about your issues with Spunk later on.
Okay, see you. Thank you.
All right. Let's hit that. And what do I do? Finish? Yeah.
Are we still
and then
streaming?
I have to hit.